Well, go on, everybody. Lennox here from Simple 123 Trader. This is the weekly playbook outlook for the week of July 4th to 8th. Today was, of course, Independence Day. United States markets were closed. All right, so I'm going to start off taking a look at the US dollar index as usual, and we'll see what's setting up for the US dollar going into this week and for the major US pairs against it. All right, so on the futures, we are sitting right at a resistance area, so pretty strong at this point move, and looking like we're going to either be stuck in a range this week or we're going to break through and continue to the upside. So which one will it be? It is setting up, looking like we should break through to the upside. Based on the pattern that I'm seeing here. So a strong US dollar leading into this week looks like it's in the cards at this point. I'm going to just drop down a little lower on the time frame just to take a closer look, and you can see we are indeed just kind of struggling along at the top here, but expected move would be to the upside out of this mess. All right, so a strong US dollar would bode well for the US major pairs, Aussie and Euro and GBP and New Zealand, all to the downside if the US dollar moves to the upside, and Canadian USD CAD, USD Swiss, USD JPY to the upside along with the US dollar if that's the case. All right, so let's take a look at the Australian dollar. I'm going to go to the weekly on that one, and we'll see how that's looking. So Australian dollar pointing to the downside as right now, sitting at a little bit of a previous support area, but looking rather like we're going to continue more down moves going into this week. All right, so taking a look at the Canadian dollar, which is we would expect a move. If the US dollar moves to the upside, we'd expect US dollar strength against the Canadian dollar. Canadian dollar right now in a little bit of a tight area, support resistance area as well on the daily. Very choppy, but looking like it wants to maybe push up one more time to the upside. So a little bit of strength maybe going into this week for the Canadian dollar, but might be very weak against the US dollar if the US dollar indeed pushes to the upside. Okay, so that's the US dollar. Let's take a look at the euro. Euro futures are on the weekly pointing to the downside. So lots of weakness in the euro, and I would expect that to continue into this week as well. Okay, so that's the euro pointing down. We're sitting right at a little bit of a support area as well, but looking for further weakness in euro. Let's take a look at the Swiss franc. Swiss franc on the weekly, trying to push back to the upside. Looks like it's more of a fake move to the upside here, and I would be looking for further weakness in the Swiss franc going into this week. Okay, so a little bit of weakness in the Swiss franc there. The Japanese yen on the weekly also quite weak, so I would expect further weakness. I'm going to go to the monthly on this one because I cannot see to the left, and there isn't anything over there on to the left. There we go. On the left-hand side, we can see we're coming to a support area, and there's lots of room still to go to the downside on the Japanese yen. So weakness in the Japanese yen going into the week. Taking a look at New Zealand dollar. New Zealand dollar futures also pointing down, quite weak overall, and I would expect further weakness in the New Zealand dollar going into the week. Okay, and let's take a look at the British pound. And on the weekly, British pound also looking very weak. So again, a strong U.S. dollar would see weakness with the US with the British pound against it. So that's what would be expected. We're still pushing to the downside here with British pound. So I would look for further weakness in the British pound as well. And that's basically it for those pairs. Let's take a look at Bitcoin and see what's going on with Bitcoin here. On the weekly, Bitcoin has reached below the 20,000 area. Have we reached a point where we're going to get a turnaround? That is totally a possibility at this point. Just maybe a little bit of a bounce for this week. It might be in the cards. I can see that we've come down quite nicely in this structure, so it is a possibility of a move back up in the short term. This could also be a little bit of a fake out move, and we could be turning right back down on a bounce. So be prepared for that in Bitcoin. Looking still a bit weak here, so we might get a further drop before we get that bounce. So be prepared for that possibility as well. Okay, so a little bit of, I would say a little bit of weakness first, more than likely, before we get a bounce, but we could certainly get a bounce here as well. Okay, let's take a look at crude oil. Crude oil on the weekly. Okay, we're way up there on crude oil. It's looking like it wants to try to push back to the upside here. We've had a little bit of a pullback from 124 down to the 100 area, but it's looking like it wants to turn around. Now, at this point, any further weakness, which it is definitely possible, would take us below these levels and back down into this area. So it is looking like it is possible that we could falter a little bit first before we get a turnaround. But if any kind of news comes out with any negativity and so forth, we could see crude oil bounce to the upside out of here. But looking short term here, it looks like we might have a little bit of a down move in crude oil going into the week. All right, and let's take a look at the gold. Take a look at gold. Okay, so gold on the weekly, a little bit of weakness. We had quite a push to the upside here recently, and then a big fall, and we're sitting right back at a support area, and I would expect further weakness in gold going into this week. So we're looking like we're going to continue this move to the downside for this week at least with gold. Okay, and what else can we look at here? Let's take a look at the Dow. Okay, so the Dow ended off the week with a little bit of strength. And do we continue that strength to the upside going into this week? We definitely hit a bottom. Was that bottom a support area? It's a semi-support resistance area indeed, and we could see further push to the upside. Looking like that might be the case. I'm just going to drop to the 4-hour just to get a little closer look at this. And indeed, we could see further pushes to the upside going into the start of the week at least. Okay, so a little bit of strength in the Dow going into the week. Okay, let's see how S&P. S&P is basically the same, so I would expect the same type of movement to the upside. The same thing with the Russell. You can see they all have the same pattern. And the NASDAQ, where is my NASDAQ? No NASDAQ here, so let's just take a look at the US technology. Same pattern, looking like we should push to the upside at least in the short term going into this week. Okay, so I thought I had the NASDAQ here, but I do not have the NASDAQ. All right, so that's a look at what's setting up for this week. And keep your eyes on the US dollar if you're playing the majors, and profitable trading to everyone. I'm done now. Thank you.